Hey, I'm Becca with the Happy Ever Crafter, and in this week's tutorial, I'm showing you how to do lettering on pumpkins. So we go over what pens to use, how to do the layout, and all of that jazz. Let's jump right in. Okay, so for tools in this video, I obviously have a pumpkin. This is just like a fake pumpkin that I got from Michael's, but this all would also apply on real pumpkins. It's just not really the season yet to go out and buy pumpkins or they're gonna rot before Halloween for me. So this is a fake pumpkin. Then I have a random piece of paper just to do my sketch on. I have a pencil. I have a Sharpie oil-based black paint pen. I use oil-based because it's the most durable. It's a little more durable than water-based, but if you only have water-based, it's also a decent option. And I've tested lots of different pens for lettering on pumpkins. I've tried a lot of different brands, and I find this one works the best and is the least streaky. So this is a really good option, and it's also pretty easy to find. I just get mine at Michael's or on Amazon. And then I also have a brush pen that I'm just going to use for my sketch because I want to be able to see those thicks and thins. If you don't know how to use a brush pen, I've got lots of videos all about that too. So the first thing I'm going to do is sketch out the design that I want on paper, just so that it's easier in my mind for exactly how I want to get it onto the pumpkin. So I'm going to use my pencil and my brush pen, and I'm making this for a family who wants their family name on their pumpkin. So it's the Hart family, and I'm going to use my brush pen and just start. I mean, you can do this in pencil if you're not comfortable in brush pen, but I'm just going to start drawing out some different options. My recommendation when you're doing any sort of layouts like this, and this is a really basic kind of tip that you can use apart, like not just on pumpkins, is decide which letters you want to do in calligraphy and which letters you want to do in block letters first. So I'm obviously going to write the family name in calligraphy and the other parts in block letters. And so my recommendation is to always write the calligraphy part first. So I'm going to write Hart first. And the lettering on this part obviously doesn't have to be perfect because you're just doing your initial design right now. And then I'm actually just going to use a normal felt tip black pen. This is just a Papermate Flare, and jot in. Again, these aren't going to be perfect letters. These are just to get the spacing in right now. And so I like the way that looks, but I think I'm going to change a little bit of the bouncing so that it fills up this space a little more. So I'd probably bring the bounce on that A down a little bit. Actually, just bring the A completely all down a little more. Maybe make the loop on the R a little bigger. And I think I'm actually pretty happy with that. So obviously make these straight, but that's pretty much the layout that I want to do. Now, it's pretty lucky that I just happened to make that right off the bat. Sometimes it takes a little more playing with the layout before you can get started, but play with that for as long as you need to for whatever wording you want to do, and then we'll move on to the pumpkin. Okay, so now I've got my pumpkin and I'm going to use my pencil. And again, if you're really comfortable, you could just go straight onto your pumpkin with your paint pen, but I think most people who are watching this video are probably doing this maybe for the first time or are beginners with lettering. So I'm going to do this in pencil first. And so what I like to do, this obviously, like I said, is a fake pumpkin, and so it's a little bit easier. But I like to take my pumpkin and kind of turn it around and see where the most flat part is. So obviously it would be a lot harder for me to letter on these ridges here, whereas this one side of the pumpkin is a little bit flatter. It still has some bumps in it that are going to have to be worked around, but definitely that's the best spot to write on. And so I'm just going to draw out that same design that I did in my pen onto this pumpkin in pencil. Now, if you are a super beginner and you feel like you need a little bit of extra help here, you could also use some tape and put tape along the edge of this pumpkin just to keep your letters approximately the same size. But I'm just going to jump right in and freehand it. The nice thing about pumpkin is usually if you're using pencil on it, you can actually just erase with your finger. You might need an eraser if you're pressing really hard, but I suggest pressing nice and lightly anyway. And then I'm going to sort of turn my pumpkin around hold it up in different angles and see if it kind of looks okay on that angle, which I think it does in this instance. So next I'm going to add in the block letters. And again, same thing. If you feel like you need a guideline, you can totally put one on there. For me, I'm pretty comfortable with block letters, so I'm just gonna toss them on here. And these are handmade products, keep in mind, so they don't have to be perfect. You can make them as perfect as you wanna be, but I find even just having like really basic lettering on here, it always looks good no matter what. And then again, same thing, kind of hold it up, see if it makes sense on different angles, if it looks fairly straight. And then once you're happy with your design, of course you can keep erasing and fixing things if you need to, but once you're happy with your design, you're just gonna move on with your paint pen and jump right in. So when you're working with paint pen, if you're new to this, you wanna make sure that it's really well shaken up. And then you wanna have a surface nearby. It doesn't really matter what the surface is. I kind of have this like plastic thing over here, and you want to make sure that the tip of your paint pen is always really saturated. So I'm going to just dab it down onto this surface, make sure that it's running really well. And then same thing, I'm going to do the calligraphy part first, as I did in the sketching. Before I jump into this, I want to say it because I'm just going to do it as I'm working, is you want to make sure that you're actually doing your faux calligraphy, like thickening the strokes as you go. So you don't want to write the whole word and then go back and thicken, because you want to make sure that your paint pen is wet as you're working and thickening strokes. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you have never done faux calligraphy before, go and watch this video up here and then come back to this when you're ready. So I'm just going to jump in and do that on this pumpkin. So again, I'm thickening that downstroke on the H while the rest of it is wet. And even here I can tell that my paint pen is starting to dry up a little bit. So again, dabbing it onto my plastic surface off to the side. Okay, so I've got my calligraphy done, and now I'm actually going to switch to a smaller version of this Sharpie paint pen. So this is a medium size, and I'm going to switch to a fine, and I'm going to do the smaller letters with a smaller pen. Now you don't have to do that, you can always do them in this pen. It just kind of depends on your style. Now one thing to keep in mind as you move on to doing these block letters or working around any of your existing calligraphy is you want to make sure that that part is really nice and dry before you jump into this. So I paused the video for a minute and let it dry, because if your hand touches it, you're going to get smudges all over your pumpkin, which is really hard to remove once it's on there. Now, if you're watching this and you are thinking that you don't have good enough block letters or good enough calligraphy, I've got tons of tutorials. You can click up here actually for the block lettering one, and you can definitely give your lettering a practice before you jump right onto a pumpkin. But that's basically it. Now, if you want to get crazy, you could add any embellishments you want. So really simple things you could add are like these little bursts and some circles. I just find these really fill up space nicely. Put them all in different angles, different sizes, and kind of just fill up around the text. If you are into drawing, if you're a good illustrator, you could obviously be adding some sort of like Thanksgiving style illustrations, or you could do some Halloween kind of things. I just am not the best illustrator, so I find these work best for me. And there you have it. Now, if you notice any of your pencil lines like I have here on my T, you can just gently use your finger to go through. Just make sure that your lettering is completely dry before you do that, and you can remove all of your pencil marks. But in a nutshell, that's how you would letter on a pumpkin. And the very last thing I want to mention is at the start of this video, I was talking about using Sharpie oil based pens. And I know that people sometimes want to do this in different colors other than black. So Sharpie comes in gold and white, as well as a lot of other colors. But I find gold, black, and white are kind of my go-tos for pumpkins. So if you look on this one, it's another fake pumpkin, but this is what the gold would look like. And I've tested lots of different golds on pumpkins, and I find Sharpie has the best one. And then this is what white would look like. So hopefully you found that tutorial helpful. And again, if you do any of these projects on your own, I'd love to see them. So tag me at the Happy Ever Crafter. And if you like this type of tutorial, I put one out every single week. So make sure you hit the subscribe button below, and I'll see you next time.